The views and opinions expressed on America's Workforce Union podcast and its digital media channels are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of the producers or sponsors.
Welcome to the America's Workforce Radio Podcast, the flagship production of the American Workers Radio and Podcast Network, where organized labor and its never-ending fight to protect the rights of the American worker come first. Now, presented by LIUNA, Laborers International Union of North America. Here's your host, Ed Flash Ferentz.
Rideshare drivers find a friend in the Illinois General Assembly. Meanwhile, the governor of Connecticut signs legislation over the use of automation. And today on the show, the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council. Welcome to the Thursday, June 4th edition of America's Workforce, where we're available on at least 5 platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. Dorsey Hager will be our featured guest on the show today. No stranger to America's Workforce. We check with him every month here on the show. He is the Executive Secretary-Treasurer of the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council. ColumbusConstruction.org is the website, and we're going to talk about the sales tax exemption on data centers, which is no more, thanks to Governor Mike DeWine. Apparently, they were looking at the revenue that was lost, and we're talking $1.8 billion. They did not expect that number to be so high, so the governor temporarily pulled off that sales tax exemption for the data center. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Does that mean that data centers are going to stop? Well, that's why we have Dorsey on the show today. He's going to explain, well, he was pretty much shocked by it. So many people were shocked by it because these data centers are creating a whole lot of jobs. In fact, I came across a real interesting story recently about how unions are emerging as a key political force in state-level data center regulation debates. There's a lot of those going on right now. But you have to know this. Data center construction now accounts for nearly 30% of all U.S. construction value. That's how big data center construction is in America. There's a lot of communities that don't want them. But the bottom line is this. We need them. We are in a different world today. And Dorsey's going to speak to that as our featured guest right here on America's Workforce, because today is Trades Day. Now, brief look into the world of labor, the segment brought to you by Boyd Watterson Asset Management. We're talking, my gosh, almost $40 billion of assets under advisement. You can find more at this website, boydwatterson.com, boydwatterson.com. The Illinois General Assembly has passed House Bill 5090, which regulates how rideshare drivers can form unions, elect union representatives, and engage in collective bargaining. The bill passed the House by a vote of 83 to 28 after passing the Senate the day before. This comes as a huge victory for rideshare drivers who, for the past 5 months now, have lobbied the Illinois state capitol almost weekly in an effort to get the bill passed. Now, as independent contractors, rideshare drivers are not able to unionize under federal labor law, making state labor law their only option. One of the state senators, Ram Villavalam, the bill's sponsor, said that the bill goes back to a fundamental belief that the ability to unionize leads to better wages, better benefits, and better working conditions. Now, this bill comes on the heels of what happened in Massachusetts, which we talked about on the show, where rideshare drivers are becoming the first in the nation to unionize. So as more states pass similar laws, unionization for rideshare drivers may become more common. So we have to salute the state of Massachusetts and now Illinois, at least their General Assembly. I'm pretty sure the governor is going to sign on to this. Speaking of governors, let's go to Connecticut, where their governor, Ned Lamont, has signed SB 5, Senate Bill 5, an act concerning online safety, a bipartisan piece of legislation that was passed by the state legislature in early May. The sweeping new law includes a section requiring that businesses notify employees and job applicants about the company's use of automation in employment decisions. This includes notice about the sources and types of personal data that are factored into decisions. The law puts Connecticut alongside California, Colorado, and Illinois as one in a handful of states putting safeguards in place regarding employers' use of AI tools in hiring and firing. And one more thing here, the Connecticut law further makes it mandatory for employers to notify the state's labor department if a mass layoff or plant closure results from the adoption of artificial intelligence or other automation tools. Just another example of states trying to regulate things to make it better for workers. So hats off to the governor of Connecticut for going in that direction. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Dorsey Hager on behalf of the Columbus Central Ohio Building Trades coming up next.
You're listening to America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ferens.
There is unity and strength for workers.
We are the USW.
We are the USW.
The United Steelworkers.
The largest industrial union in North America.
We represent 850,000 members in the U.S., Canada, and the Caribbean.
We work in metals,
Rubber,
chemicals,
paper,
oil refining,
atomic energy, and the service sector.
we are steelworkers, standing strong and fighting for what's right.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, where you can find more at teamster.org.
America's Workforce is sponsored in part by Boyd Watterson Asset Management, LLC. Find out more about our investment solutions tailored to meet the needs of Taft-Hartley funds at boydwatterson.com.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers. You can find more at ifpte.org.
It takes LiUNA to power North America with affordable energy. The men and women of LiUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, have the skills needed to build and maintain oil, natural gas, nuclear, solar, and wind projects that are shaping America's energy future. From new energy tech to retrofitted facilities, LiUNA members do it all. Find out what it takes to be powered by LiUNA at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Ferens.
And don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook or follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. That would be AWF Union Podcast, AWF Union Podcast. Well, today is Thursday. That means it's Trades Day here on America's Workforce. And today, our featured guest is a longtime contributor to the show, and that would be Dorsey Hager, who serves as Executive Secretary-Treasurer of the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council, columbusconstruction.org. You can follow them on X at Build Central, OH. Very appropriate because there's a lot of building going on in Central Ohio. There's a lot of building going on in America with data centers. And I'll tell you, there's a whole show in itself right there because there's been some pushback. It's really, really great for the trades. Dorsey, welcome back to the show. Ohio is part of that controversy. Now the Governor Mike DeWine, is repealing the sales tax exemption on those data centers. Let's just start right there, brother. Go ahead. What's going on here?
Yeah, we were obviously very disheartened to see that his decision kind of came out of nowhere to suspend the sales tax initiative, ending that tax incentive without any input from the community, any input from many of our unions, many of our officers, both local and statewide, that have supported him throughout his long career and his candidacy and his run for governor and just his whole career. Like I said, very disheartening, especially when he previously vetoed an effort earlier So we think this is just an example of a very reactionary kind of knee-jerk policy to the current backlash against data centers instead of really using forward-thinking legislation that we have seen in some other states, including, reporting on energy and water usage, requirements around maybe community benefit agreements, also economic development agreements, which we're seeing a lot of here in Columbus, Central Ohio. We talked about down at the Asheville, regulating maybe types of energy to be used on these projects. So again, came out of nowhere, very unfortunate. Would have really appreciated a heads up. Don't know really what he's trying to accomplish with what he did. There's a lot of states that currently offer different type of tax incentives. There's a lot of states that offer what we do, which is a sales tax exemption on materials used to build these data centers, which a lot of this equipment, a lot of the materials, the concrete and stuff, anything that's used like roofing that has petroleum involved in it because of the high gas and diesel prices, it does give a savings to the data centers. And people in the community are complaining that we've lost $1.8 billion in tax revenue with these sales tax decreases. I would argue that giving up a little bit on the sales tax has really led to an economic boom here, not only in Columbus, but in Central Ohio, but all of the state of Ohio. I think there's over 200 data centers right now in the state of Ohio, which makes us second behind Virginia. We don't want to see anything done by any local state legislators or anybody passing any legislation or restrictions that would make us less competitive against other states to be able to get these projects and keep this economic boom going.
Dorsey, if you don't mind, let's break this down a little bit here, because obviously they give the incentive here to create the data centers. Okay, I didn't realize there were 200 of them in the state of Ohio. But on the other hand, you've got people working, you got construction workers, you got the trades, pretty much all the trades working on these data centers. That in turn, well, there's payroll taxes. Doesn't that make up for a chunk of that part? I mean, this is part of a bigger picture here. You follow me?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I was doing some basic math. We had mentioned this previous shows, Google, which has 3 campuses in Central Ohio. They have one on South High Street, which is Columbus. They have one in Lancaster, which is southeast of Columbus in Fairfield County. And then they have one in New Albany, which is really the hub of the data center boom that started about 5 or 6 years ago here in Central Ohio. Last year in 2025, just those 3 Google campuses, just those 3 sites worked 6.5 million building trades hours. Those are just building trades hours. That doesn't include all the other ancillary services that they provide, the on-site people that are running and maintaining those either. So if you take some basic math on that 6.5 million man hours, that means those 3 Google sites, just in local taxes, not state taxes, just in local taxes for Lancaster, New Albany, and Columbus, produced almost $14 million in income. $14 million. We talked about Asheville, and Asheville's looking at building a power center to power future data centers that they're going to build there. They're going to make revenue in energy taxes off of that power center of anywhere between $11 to $13 million a year that are going to stay with the village. The state's going to get their cut, but 11 to 13 million is going to stay with the village. The village of Asheville itself, their yearly budget is $8.5 million. So this one power center is going to cover all their police needs, all their fire needs, all their needs in the community, road improvements, everything. And this is just one project. This doesn't include anything else that may be coming down there. And it's automatically overnight going to become the number one provider in taxes and going to by itself single-handedly take care of its entire budget.
All right, let's get back to the sales tax exemption that the governor decided to repeal. How is that going to affect what's going on right now? Is it going to slow it down? Are they going to look for different ways to continue this? I mean, what's the game plan right now?
I don't know. I mean, he said it wasn't permanent. He said it was just a pause. I don't want to be this guy, but maybe it's something he's doing politically, because my understanding, a lot of these data centers and a lot of these projects that have these long-term development agreements and deals, many go into the future up to 30 years, have already had these sales tax breaks locked in. So basically what he did didn't really do anything for a lot of these folks who already have their agreements done. We have a large campus in Union County where I live. We believe the developer is aligned. They bought that land last year. They're not going to break ground till 29, and that campus is going to be complete in 2035. So they're already grandfathered in. They've got their development deals. They've got their deal set with the Ohio Tax Authority. So what the governor did doesn't do anything of that. What we're fearful of that comes from chatter from the governor, comes from some of the hearings currently going on at the State House right now, comes from some of these villages and municipalities that are passing these moratoriums, is these large data center developers, not just the Googles and the Amazons and the Microsoft that everybody thinks of every day and everybody uses every day, but also the Aligned, the Vantage, OTS, which has a proposed data center complex up in Northwest Ohio that's right around $12 billion, which would be a huge boom for that region. What if these guys are reading this and getting these clicks on their newsfeed and it gives off the impression that Ohio is no longer open for business? It could really start a tidal wave where some of these folks are not choosing us and choosing Virginia and some of these other areas. And I just think that would be unfortunate because, like you and I talk about on this show, close to 40% of our work hours come from data center construction and maintenance. 2023, we worked 9 million man hours, the most we've ever worked. 2026, we're on pace to eclipse 20 million man hours. So in less than 3 years, we're going to double our hours worked. And to put that into, people want to talk about jobs and job creation, that's 10,000 jobs. That's 10,000 careers that are being started with people making incredible wages and benefits, being able to provide for their families. I had some outreach. I've had a lot of outreach the last couple weeks because I had a couple of quotes in an article that the AP Newswire picked up. And a young lady in New York, producer for Fox Business News, reached out to me and asked me to go on live Friday night to kind of talk about the governor's exemption. And, one of the things that I said to her that people can really see in their community and really put their finger on is showing as a benefit is we have folks coming right out of high school, or we have adults in their 20s, 30s, 40s that are either unemployed or underemployed getting into our apprenticeship programs. And within 2 to 3 years, they're making six-figure incomes, being able to buy new houses, provide for their families, take care of their kids. And that is a direct reinvestment right back into their community and helps everybody's standard of living. And I think that's one of the things that's not being talked about enough, not being mentioned with this data center boom that's occurring right now in Columbus and Central Ohio.
I'm going to add 3 more words to what you just said. No college debt.
No college debt. You're absolutely right. After our interview, I'm going to go next door to the IBW 683 and speak to about 200 guidance counselors. And it's amazing the perception that's changed, not only with young people. I feel that young people are coming out of high school and they're looking at opportunities where they can make as much money as they can with as little debt as possible sooner than later. But also, I think college counselors are seeing these career paths and the trades, especially with the jobs that are created again by the data centers, which are clean, very stable. You're out of the elements. The conditions are incredible. You're not in the middle of a field digging ditches. You're not, hanging from a bridge. These are great opportunities that they provide for people who are new to the construction industry that, again, the quality of the job sites, the safety conditions, the standards are incredible, and it just provides a great opportunity for people to get into, and it's long-range career opportunities that are being created.
Dorsey Hager is our featured guest on the show today. Dorsey is the Executive Secretary-Treasurer of the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council. It's called the Silicon Heartland. We'll talk more about it next, right here on America's Workforce. Back in a few minutes. Don't go away.
This is America's Workforce. More shows available at awfradio.com.
American workers are sick of struggling to get by. It's time to get ahead. In the Teamsters Union, workers are winning industry-leading contracts, historically high wages, fully paid health care, and retirement benefits you can count on. Across the country, Teamsters fight alongside our brothers and sisters to secure a better life. It's what we've been doing and how we've been living for more than a century. When we fight, we win. Join us. Be a Teamster.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Ironworkers. You can find more at ironworkers.org.
America's Workforce appreciates our sponsor, the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council, who represents more than 18,000 workers from 19 affiliated local unions and district councils.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Communication Workers of America. You can find more at cwa-union.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the United Steelworkers. You can find more at usw.org. The Heat and Frost Insulators and Allied Workers are proud to be a title sponsor for America's Workforce Radio. The Insulators Union is leading the way in the mechanical insulation industry, fire stopping, and infectious disease control. Regarded as North America's energy conservation specialists, these professionals are known for their professional work and dedication. You can learn more about the Insulators Union at insulators.org.
Now, back to Ed Flash Ferens with America's Workforce.
And don't forget, you can check us out on at least 5 platforms. That includes YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. And when you get an opportunity, here's what you do. Just sign up and receive our shows on a regular basis and give us a rating. Always appreciate those 5-star ratings, so please keep them coming. Let's go back to our featured guest on today, Trades Day, here on America's Workforce. Dorsey Hager is the Executive Secretary-Treasurer of the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council. I always laugh at their former Twitter handle, which is now X, Build Central OH, and it's so darn appropriate. I mean, I know you had this for quite some time, long before things started popping up, like Intel, Facebook, Google, Amazon, all those things in Central Ohio. Why don't you kindly give us an update on Intel? I know that's been delayed. I don't know if it's being delayed anymore. Maybe you could fill us in on the latest, Dorsey. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we have about 1,600 members out there currently. A lot of carpenters, a lot of pipe fitters, a lot of electricians, a lot of iron workers. Obviously, a lot of iron and steels coming up out of the ground, going vertical, and there's a lot of iron and steel that's going into the fab plants as well to support a lot of the fabs and a lot of the tools that are going to be set in there that are going to make the wafers and going to make the chips for Intel. Got a great piece of news a couple of weeks ago, and I kind of did some research and also reached out some financial people that I depend on. In the last few years, since some of the disheartening news that's came out of New York, the changing of the CEO, kind of the flip over of the board a little bit and their new direction and new vision. Also, a lot of their layoffs that have cut a lot of their balance sheet, and also the suspension of some construction projects in Israel and Europe. In the last 36 months, the Intel stock has more than tripled. So they're raising capital. They're doing good. The feeling around Intel is good. People are investing in Intel. Obviously, the government got them some money, which I think started things on the right foot. They signed a big deal with NVIDIA, which is good. And then they just signed a deal with Apple. So they're going to produce chips for Apple, which everybody knows Apple uses more chips than any other customer in the world. So on top of this news, we've been having lots of meetings with Bechtel, who's the contractor out there in charge of building the 2 fabs, the first $28 billion. And while Bechtel hasn't came out and said it, I know that folks from Intel have been out there keeping tabs on there, been touring. Like we said a few months ago, Bechtel has put themselves back in the supply chain. This isn't like building an elementary school or a rec center where you need an air handling unit, and you need some copper pipe, and you need some drywall. This is high-tech work that requires some very, very specific types of products, types of supplies and stuff that are going to go into the construction of this facility. So once they had stepped out of the supply chain, a lot of people jumped up in front of them. Now that Intel or that site out there in New Albany is now back in the supply chain. So I don't think I'm being overly optimistic, but I would say if I was at the betting window in a sports book, I would say that by the end of next year, we'll have close to 4,000 tradespeople out there. I think they're going to, hopefully, the schedule is still to open in 2031 with some of the orders that are coming in from Apple and NVIDIA and some of the other contracts they're working on. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't move up the ladder a little bit and they try to get that thing opened a little bit earlier. That's the good side. That's the good news. That's the positive. The other thing that I say, and I've said it many times, if we didn't have any work, if we didn't have this data center boom, if we didn't have all the healthcare work that's going on, and if we didn't have all the other commercial work that's going on here in Columbus and Central Ohio, and if I had folks off, I'm sure myself and my fellow managers and agents would be out there at the fence, shaking the fence every day for them to hire. But right now, Our attitude is if they've got 1,600 people out there, great. If they ramp up to 4,000, we're prepared to help them meet the schedules and the needs they need. But there's plenty of other opportunities around Columbus and Central Ohio right now for our members. So we don't have all our eggs in one basket out there at Intel with Bechtel. There's lots of other opportunities, and for that we're fortunate. So just got to keep the boom going here and keep the train rolling on the tracks.
Dorsey, if you would be so kind, give us an update on the apprenticeship programs, what's going on there to make sure that that demand can be filled. Are we doing pretty well right now at this stage?
Record numbers of applications coming in, which is good. There's always a flip side to everything. Maybe the bad or something that we need to work on, and I know we're all working on it, is processing those applications. We have record numbers of apprentices, IBW 1105, IBW 683, ironworkers 172, plumbers and pipe fitters, local 189, my home local insulators, local 50. People read about these opportunities. They hear these podcasts. They see some of the interviews I do on national news media and also local, and they realize that the direct path to the middle class goes through the building trades. So again, receiving records of numbers of applications. We're also increasing staff to process those applications. Many of our training centers are expanding or even adding additional buildings so that they can handle the needs. But yeah, I think we're meeting the moment. I think first thing is what we're doing here with you, Flash, every month is getting the word out and the marketing and talking about it. And then second is getting these folks in the door. The outreach events help too. We had a great outreach event at IBW 683 a couple weeks ago, had over 1,000 people come through the door at 5 o'clock before the event started and the doors were waiting to open. There was over 300 people out front, not only to learn about careers in the IBW, which are incredible, but to learn about other careers in the trades as well. So we had another successful outreach event at Local 189 last week, and we're looking to do more. We're going to partner with the Ohio State Building Trades, do our weekly outreach event in July at the Ohio State Fair, going and talking to people and talking to parents and grandparents about opportunities for their sons and nieces and nephews and daughters in the trades while you're there at the Ohio State Fair in the shadow of the giant Ferris wheel and the smell of corn dogs and walking over to the butter cow and eating ice cream's tough work, but I sign up for it every year. I'm willing to go the extra mile to do it. So,
well, feel free to shoot me a couple of emails here on some of those locals in Central Ohio, and we'll give them a little love here on America's Workforce. When you got a good thing going, we want to make sure we keep it going in the right direction here.
Absolutely.
We'll be happy to tell that story to our listeners. All right, one more thing here. I understand there was an event with your City Council President in Columbus, Shannon Hardin?
Yeah, Council President Shannon Hardin. He's been on council for about 11 years now, almost as long as I've been in my role here at the Columbus Building Trades. He understands the council and the trades firsthand because his brother, Christian, is an IBW 683 member, journey person member. Christian's very successful career in the IBW. So Shannon saw firsthand what a career in the building trades can do for your financial stability, for yourself and for your family. And shout out to Christian. He was just blessed with a baby boy in the last couple of weeks. And congratulations to Shannon. He's got a new nephew. So I know that they're very proud. But yeah, we're trying to help him and help our friends at council keep ahead of the curve. They're going to have a big re-election year next year. Council President Hardin, Nick Bankston, Lourdes Barroso de Padilla, Melissa Green, Nancy Day Alcower, they'll be on the slate. So tried to get some people to get there and raise some money for Council President Hardin. And Council President Hardin has one of the best lines and one of the best stump speeches that I've ever heard. And I won't be able to do it justice because I don't have his comedic timing, but it goes basically like this. My mother raised a beautician, an electrician, and a politician. And if anything breaks or goes wrong, I'm the last one she calls. So just a tremendous friend of the building trades. A lot of the policies he's done has helped us and our members, establishing the CBA committee, which has created billions of dollars worth of construction work for not only our members, but giving us the ability, like we talk about all the time, to go out in the community, especially the underserved, underprivileged, people of color, females, underemployed, unemployed, veterans, and get them onto these local jobs here in the city that have been created by the council president and the CBA committee, and get them into our building trades programs and on that direct path to the middle class. So it was great to hang out with him, have a few drinks, break bread, talk about what's going on in our great city and all the growth and all the potential more growth here in Central Ohio and Columbus.
That's why it's called Build Central OH. I love that. Dorsey Hager, a featured guest on the show today, Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council. The website to go to, columbusconstruction.org. Well, you take care, my friend. We'll talk to you next month, okay?
All right. Sounds great. Appreciate you so much, Flash. When we're talking next month, we're going to be in the heat of the baseball season, talking about the trade deadline, hopefully upcoming playoffs for the Guardians and Reds, and a little bit of July 4th barbecuing. So it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
And that'll be it for another edition of America's Workforce. Tomorrow, the Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO. Until then, all of you have a safe and wonderful day.
That concludes another episode of the America's Workforce Radio Podcast. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. America's Workforce is a production of Labor Tools and BMA Media Group. Find out more information online at labortools.com.